Actually, I think for a detail layer, I went over a little bit to the edge. Right here. I just go back and delete that. Didn't notice that before. So I just go back and delete from the previous layer too. And for the body, same thing. Change it to whatever color you want. Just turn off the continuous, so you just change arm. You give him a black eye as well. Give us same color boot. Remember, select this area from the boot. So you see, just by doing this, remember, select this area from the boot. So you see, just by doing this, we just made two versions of the same character, and you just did it really quickly. This is a really handy tool when you want to test different color scheme, and you want to present different idea to a client, just to do really quick changes to your character. And before we finish this lesson, I want to go over one last part that a fun thing that you could do with cell shading. You could basically do it with any type of coloring method, but with cell shading is pretty fast. When you're doing a character, let's say sometimes you might want to add accessories to it and just give them something, test different type of customization to them. When you can always add it on top. What I usually do is I create a new layer, fill it with white, and just turn off the opacity a little bit, like this. So you have a kind of like a tracing paper. You make one layer on top, and set as multiply, and draw the extra parts that you want to give them. For example, what I mean by customization is if let's say I want to give them a cool looking shoulder piece like that. You could draw it. Let's erase this. You could add a shoulder piece like this, and for example, what else is good part? Let's give them let's say a knee pad. Same thing. Knee pad of this giant horn sticking out. And I'm going to do this one really quick. And what you do is, same thing as what you just did in the cell shading just before. You'll select the flat area. I'll do it extra quick for this one. The base color. And just fill it with a temporary color for now. And you remember, group it, actually control select, and do the mask for this layer. And I'm just going over what we just learned. Everything is the same thing, what we just learned. And remember to keep the same light source. I'm using F2 again for the fill. And now is a color selecting portion of it. Maybe a little bit of gray, a little bit of gray, and for the teeth looking things, let's give it a bit brighter white color just to match the original color scheme. And see, we just added this. Let's turn off the white layer. You see that it kind of seemed like it kind of doesn't fit, and the reason for this is because you added a layer here. You also need a cast shadow. so that it feels like it's part of the same picture. But before we do that, let's add do the overlay step like we did from before. Choose a large brush size, soft brush, and go for a color. You see that because we use the same color light source, it immediately kind of bring the picture together a little bit more, so that it seems like it's hitting from the same light area. Now, kind of like what we did for the shadow for this character, you do a layer behind and set it as multiply, and do the cast layer for the piece of armor that you just did right now. I go like this, fill, oops, fill, same thing here, fill. You see right now, let me just do add one more little detail to the characters. A little bit, just wait 1 second. Rectangle. I like the rectangle brush. And I'll go over brush making in later part of the lesson. In later lessons, I mean. And you could just add a little type of pattern to the shoulder piece, doing the line layer. Add little details here and there. Same thing here, add little patterns. I like giving it some type of leather texture. So there we go. I did it's really quick, but you'll see that you can always group this cast shadow and object layer together and rename it armor. So now we have a customization armor layer just for that, and it's good when you're doing concept as well. For me, I always use this method quite a lot when I'm maybe, for example, designing the whole armor set, different armor set for this character. You always go back and make a layer, and you can always choose different color for the armor to test what worked and what not. And let me just feel like adding a little bit of highlight because it kind of doesn't look complete. This is metal area, so it kind of need a little bit of highlight to make it stand out a little bit. Oops. There we go. So this is basically cell shading and a little bit of tip on how you could apply it to do some concept work, some design, and design as you go. And remember, everybody cell shaded a little bit differently, and it's really up to you about how you want to approach this method. Oh, before we finish, let's add one more little section to this lesson. Remember before I talked about 2-shade or 3-tone cell shading? And I just thought to spend 1 minute to talk about it. If you want to go for 3-tone, all you have to do is for the shadow layer, just make one extra shadow layer and do this basically same thing. The areas that you feel that you want multiply. You want to give it this extra shade of shadow. And don't remember to use this third color carefully. You don't want to go over too much. Use it for areas that is extra dark, or if there's a giant area that is hidden inside shadow and then the color might seem a little bit plain. What you could do is use the third color to just add that little extra variety in color. Just add that little bit of detail. But I'm sure you get the idea of that. And this is it. This is how I do my cell shading, and I hope that this helps you a little bit and give you a good understanding on this coloring method. And I'll see you again next class. Hi, welcome back. In this lesson, we'll be going over another method of coloring, the cell shading, which I'm pretty sure most of you heard of or know, probably from Japanese animation or Disney animation or just everyday Saturday morning cartoon. It's basically a type of coloring that uses a very simple, clean-cut two-tone or three-tone color to render a character or picture. In this course, I'll be briefly going over the few main different coloring styles, one of which I've mentioned in previous class, the method where you color from a black-white tonal drawing into color by just using different layer, blend modes, and a little touch up here and there. And by the end of the course, it's really up to you to adjust the different method that you feel most comfortable with and adding your own personal techniques. And you'll slowly develop it and make it your own distinct style. And just keep in mind that all the coloring method and techniques that I'm mentioning in this course is based on my personal habit and what I feel most comfortable with. And you could see if it could inspire you to come up with something that you feel most comfortable with.